I started off in traditional advertising and marketing in advertising firms, and moved on to entertainment in the gaming industry, where I worked at PopCap Games, working on Plants vs. Zombies and Bejeweled Blitz. And then at EA for a while, where I worked on quite a bit of their mobile titles. Then I went over to work at Big Fish as a creative director when they started in mobile gaming. And then at Social Point here in Barcelona, Spain. And then now I have been with Tilting Point for almost 4 years now as the VP of Creative. My main focus is on building creative teams that can specialize in producing data-driven creatives. So today, what are we talking about? So, and who should this talk really be for? It's really for anybody, but if you are a UA manager, this is great for some basic learning. If you are on the creative side, along the lines of an art director, a artist, a video artist, this should be pretty helpful and give you some information. And then if you're just a game developer, this should give you some general information and ideas on how to produce assets and scale your assets. Today, we want to talk a little bit in two main areas, optimization and scaling, and these go hand in hand. One leads to the other. So what is optimization? So the process of optimization. We talk a little bit about this as the discipline of adjusting a process to optimize some specific set of parameters without violating some constraints. So the idea or some common goals that you find when you get into trying to optimize your pipeline or your production, whatever it is you're looking to optimize, you're looking at minimizing your costs and maximizing your output or efficiency. And this ties a key into the creative process. So let's talk a little bit about what a standard creative process is in producing and running UA across different networks. Now, a lot of studios work this way. Some have their own processes, but this is the basic standard process. Usually you come up with an idea. Today we're going to talk around video a little bit more, but it's the same for static or whatever types of creatives you're producing based on the network that you're running on. So on average, you would produce a creative. You have a creative concept. That concept has come from many areas. It could come from a brainstorming session. It could come from an idea that a UA manager or a creative director might have, or even your developer or your team there comes up with, and you create this asset. And it's usually one concept that you come up with, and now you want to test this concept. So then you end up testing this concept across the different ad networks. Now, most agencies and most developers and UA managers, a lot of times they'll test the same creative across all the networks to see how it performs. You can come up usually with there's two avenues that come from this. You either have a successful ad or a successful ad on the front that you hit some sort of data point that you were trying to go after, and you were able to basically hit that point, so you consider that a successful ad. Or you have a failure. There's a 50-50 chance of where this is going to go. And most of the time, I would say 90 to 95% of your assets from this concept end up failing, and you're back to the drawing board. But we'll go into that. So if you find a successful creative, you end up making variations of this creative. So you go into the process of, you found this successful ad, video, whatever it might be, and then the team goes and produces, your creative team produces several variations of that original ad. And then from that, you get a few winners from usually running those variations. And then from those variations of those winners, you make more variations. And this process can continue to go for quite a while. With each time you're iterating on this, you're finding less successful ads. But this keeps repeating until the concept kind of dies out. Now, when that concept dies out, or when you first run the ad and you find that it's not successful, usually that concept is thrown out, and you have to come up with another idea of a new type of ad that you want to run. And then you go through the exact same process. You have a 50-50 chance of it succeeding, of it failing. If it succeeds, you go through that process again of variations and testing and variations and production. And then if it does not, you come up with new ideas and you continue down this route. And as you can see, you build out this huge chain of events. One thing leads to another, and there's a lot of process and iteration that has to go through to find your successful ad. So this is on average of what a lot of people do or does to produce their assets and to run UA, creative through UA. Now, there's some key issues that we want to address in here, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What are those key issues? Number one is we're killing concepts too soon. So with this process, you go into this and you run that ad, and if the ad fails, 99% of the time you're tossing that ad and you're moving on to a new idea. You're trying to figure out a new concept to produce. Number two is you're taking the stand of one ad for all networks. So the idea is you're producing this one ad and you're going to test it on all your networks. And on some networks you might find it work, and on some networks you might find it does not work. So you're taking this idea that the one ad you're producing is going to work everywhere you want to run it. Next is that you have slower initial learnings. You're not getting a lot of good learnings right at the very beginning because you're coming up with that one concept, you're testing the one concept, and you're either dumping it or making iterations based on the success. So we're not getting a lot of learnings right then and there. You have a higher chance of failure with this type of a process because, again, one ad, it dies out and you have to start the process over again. Number five is you have a lower return on your investment. So depending on the amount of resources that you put into creating that asset, that original asset, if it dies out and it's killed right at the very beginning, all of that investment you put into that ad is now gone, and you're now starting to have to do that again on the next type of ad. And then lastly, number six, it's the high production time and cost. And this ties to number five, simply for the fact, again, all the resources you're putting in to create that original asset, it dies out fairly quickly. You're immediately moving on to the next concept, and you have all that original investment is now gone. So what can we do to kind of mitigate that and to optimize that process a little bit to help your profit margin, to help look at getting a higher return on your original investment and finding a higher chance of success? Well, we can simplify our process through the creative iteration process by coming up with what we call internally our ad packs. So as you can see, we kind of skip that original one concept ad and then go into variations, because what we have learned is when you create this ad pack or video pack at the start of your creative process, you're having a higher chance of figuring out the success of a concept. So in the original way, you come up with an idea, it's that concept, didn't work, we throw it away, we move on. But is it the concept that did not work, or was it the iteration of how you produce that asset it is not what worked? So what we want to do at the very beginning is you have your original concept and you build variations with that original content, basing around what ad networks you're going to be running that on. So you're taking into consideration best practices of the ad networks you're going to run your creative on, so that when you make your variations around this original concept, you're also taking in and building these new variations out so that you have a higher chance of them succeeding on those ad networks. So when we run them on our ad networks, we're calling out Facebook here, but you can run these now instead of just on one network, you can run it on the varying networks with a higher chance of success. Now, from that, you will see that now instead of a 50-50 chance of an ad succeeding, you've upped your chance of finding a successful ad out of that. With that, you can then go back into the ad variation stage with the new learnings that you have gained from the different networks. You've found ads that are working here. You get to now make variations for that specific ad network for creatives to have a greater chance of success on those specific ad networks. You get a lot of great learning right at the beginning when you build a pack like this. So in conclusion, you get to find successful ads at a faster pace, reducing your overhead cost, because yes, we'll go into a little bit more in this production cost, but these ad packs, if you think about it in this way, you're creating a standard video. Let's say your video takes 6 hours to produce on average for you to produce that. You add an additional 2 hours of production time in there, and you're walking away, instead of with one video, one concept, you're walking away with 7 videos, 6 videos, a concept with 6 to 7 different videos, you get a much higher chance of success. You get to learn some key takeaways from there, such as themes, market trends, audience insights, pacing and structure, key concept elements, branding, and messaging. This allows you to take that key information very early on and start making better videos based off the data that has been provided from that original concept. And then this is a repeatable cycle. So now once you have all this information, you take that information and you start producing new creatives from all of these learnings you've gathered very quickly. And now you start building a higher percentage chance of success on those creatives as it goes through the pipeline. So let's take a look at some examples. So this is a video pack made for SpongeBob, made with our partner there, Nukebox. So we're going to take a look at this. This will show you the original concept and then 5 variations that we have created. That again is going to be able to run on the different networks with around a single concept, but iterated differently for a higher chance of success and learning early on. So the original concept. So next, let's take a look at the different variations. Okay, so as you can see on that, we had our original concept. We were able to go through on the 5 different variations, adjust pacing, adjust order of content when it shows up on the screen, add elements such as overlays and splitting up the screen, adding a live action element, changing out music, adjusting the intro card, adjusting the end card. These are all elements that are easily adjusted in production. Okay, so it doesn't add a lot of extra production time to your overall budget, but allows you to get quite a bit of learning right out the gate. You can take this same approach with static ads. So here is an original ad that you then do variations of that ad at the beginning of production. As you can see with this concept, it's very character driven. The characters are front and center, but with each ad, we've adjusted the characters that are the key images in the foreground and then pushed back characters in the background or went to single characters. We also looked if the heroes over the villains worked, so we can get that learning right out the gate. So that was basic on looking at how to adjust your overall production pipeline and optimize how you are producing your assets. You know, instead of producing one asset, you produce these packs, which helps with lowering your overall cost, allowing you to get learnings much faster, okay, and then iterating on that because you've gained a lot of knowledge almost at immediate of your campaign instead of having to draw that out over time. Next, we want to look at how that ties into scaling because these both work together. And without one, the other one won't be very successful. Through scaling, we're going to be able to learn how to balance the quality or the concept of our stories and how then we can mass produce those types of assets and make variations of those assets so we can be much more successful. So scaling through automation, I want to talk a little bit about that because that's what's going to play key in a lot of what we're going to go over to in the rest of the chat. So there's a few areas that we can look at that are going to allow us to scale our creative production. Static resizing. So a lot of times we're resizing our ads manually. We have, depending on the network, you can have hundreds and hundreds of different sizes that you're producing for your ads. This is usually a manual process that you have a junior or somebody in your team who's just sitting there resizing these ads, which then causes a lot of massive burnout for young artists, and they don't get to get in and to play with the fun stuff. So this becomes a big issue of just having to do this manually. Another part of that is localization of your static assets, of sitting there and where you're wanting, depending on where you're running your ads, you want to change the language to meet the demographic. So, you have an artist or you have somebody there getting a spreadsheet where they're switching out the different languages. And again, this becomes a repetitive task that can actually be removed and put into an automated process. Next is video automation. Now, this is a little different, and we'll talk about this because you're always going to have that creative person. You're going to need that creative person. But where can we add automation, or where we can add processes that will allow us to reduce the repetitive task of making variations of videos or making new types of videos, which I'll go over here in a second, while letting your creative team be creative, get to work on the big concepts, the big ideas that then can be moved into the automated production timeline. And that's the same thing for static. Most of what I'm talking about today is related towards the video process. That is very key in running UA at the moment, and will continue to grow. So static ties into that also because you use the same similar processes and tools. So let's take a look at this. So through automation, there are some online tools and agencies that have tools. Tilting Point has actually, we've built our own internal tools around automation. But just to give you an idea of how to think about this and on your side of it, and to start looking out or looking for people or internal tools that you might want to think about doing, is static resizing and localization. So the idea is you have a static ad that you've already created that has the language and it's a PSD file. You upload this to a tool, or you have a PSD action, whatever it might be. This can also be done through action scripting or through creating scripts in Photoshop that would allow you to do some of this processing of switching out languages and resizing. But we have a tool internally that we have built that allows us to automate this process. So we can upload a PSD file. The tool will recognize the different language, the language that is currently in there, and the size that you have. You then can have options of choosing the different sizes that you want, and the tool would then automate those sizes out for you to all the different sizes instead of actually having to manually do this yourself. So within the internal teams, I would look at there's a lot of online tools that can help you in this and trying to resize your ads and localize your ads. But this is something really internally that you want to look at. This is going to save you a lot of time of resizing your ads, localizing your ads, and really put the time back into where you need to be concentrating on, and that's original storytelling and concepts, and then let these tools resize and take over that tedious task that artists just really hate doing. Next is let's take a look at the different types of assets when it comes to video and static. So we need to look about how to simplify this process that's going to allow you to be more successful in the long run. So there's manual production. So manual production is taking an asset that you have, this is how 99% of everybody works, where you're creating an asset from the ground up. That's taking stock footage, custom illustration, audio, 2D, 3D files, and you're building a new static ad, you're building a new video ad, whatever it might be, but this is a very long and tedious process. Next, you have templated or variants. So templates are usually something that you have built an ad before that has been successful, And now you're just using that as a base to where if you get new games, you can just go in and switch characters out, you can switch backgrounds out, and you can have a new ad very quickly. You can run it back out in the network. And then you have variants, where it's a very similar process, where it's for the same game. It's an ad that's already been produced and it has been successful. And now you want to start learning more about what made that ad successful. Was it the background? Was it the character? So you start making variants of that original concept, and you switch out characters, and you can start learning from those variants what made that ad successful, and that gives you a lot of information to go back when you come up with all new concepts for your ads. And then there's something that I like to call segmented videos. Now, segmented videos are different than like variants. Variants are taking one video that you've created and making changes within that video. It's still essentially the exact same concept, just told in a different manner. Now, segmented videos work in a completely different way. So let's dive into that a little bit, because that is key to really help speed up your creative process for your internal production regarding videos. So you have a manual video or a video variant. These videos take much longer time to produce. They usually have a short lifespan, and they die out fairly quickly. Now, the idea is you take these variant videos, these new videos that are final, okay, and you can go in and you start chopping these up into segments. So you might have an intro that works really well. You might have this little custom animation that you did halfway through that you really like. And what happens is that if the original concept failed, you usually scrap that work and you move on to a new concept. But that concept might have failed, but there's elements in that video that can help you build better creatives going forward much, much faster. So the concept is you take these videos. Every time you produce a new video, you go through and you cut up segments from that video, and they go into a video library, let's say. Then you are able to take these segments and you piece those together, and all of a sudden you come out with a whole new type of creative, okay? Utilizing assets that you've spent a lot of time in producing, and then you just place them in an order within a new video, and you have a whole new video to run. And then you can start rearranging the segments in a video to create variations of that video. Okay, you are now looking at getting a huge return on your original investment. So instead of creating assets, a one-time, a one-off, it's dead, it's gone, and you're moving on, you are now completely reusing elements from these videos that you have created previously and getting a whole new longer shelf life on that production. That's going to get you a much, much higher return on that original investment. So with all of these combined, it allows you to find the right balance of what you're looking for to produce quality assets and a quantity of assets. And that is key in being successful. You have to be able to tell the right stories, finding the right concepts, but able to mass produce assets that are going to allow you to be successful when running UA. So utilizing these together by simplifying your creative pipeline at the beginning, and then mass producing assets you've already produced, and learning how to utilize automation that's out there and to work and partner with people who can utilize automation, and then adding in your segmented videos will allow you to find that balance. So that is in general the talk. I got it right down in time. That sounds great. I have that 5-minute leeway for questions, hopefully, if anybody has any. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. And I hope I was able to rely, some good basic, knowledge. And that was my goal, at least get the basic out there, and then we can really grow from there. So I appreciate everybody there. Stop presenting.
Wonderful, Williams. Hi. Hi again, William.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you so much. For joining, and it was amazing, to give the clarity about how the creative should be. This is one of the most beautiful, I would say, the beautiful presentation which you have given. And I think a lot of audiences, I think everybody got a lot of insights from this presentation. Amazing. So, Williams, we have a couple of questions from audience. So, first question is, do we need to have ads created which are culturally relevant to the geos.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
So I'm saying the ads which are created, so do they need to be culturally relevant to the geos? Geos, I mean the
Oh, the
geospecific.
geos. Okay,
Yeah.
so if I get the question correctly, should your ad be designed in a way that fits specific geos?
Yes.
Okay, so in general, it is always good to be and have a clear understanding of what different geos have. You know, each culture has different things that they gravitate to, that they like. There's a lot of different things that are happening in their social world in those moments. So it's good to clarify and understand. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't, let's say, just an example throwing out there, if we did a Christmas ad here in the States, we wouldn't obviously run that ad in different countries that doesn't really fit in. You know, it's the holidays now. You'd want to be conscious of their, you know, religious beliefs and, you know, their way of thinking. So you want to be conscious when it comes to things like that. But it also comes down to just social elements. So yes, it's good if you have a good, successful ad that doesn't break any of these boundaries. Then of course you can test that ad and run that ad in different geos. But it's always good to take a look, and especially in areas you're finding success in. If you're finding some hot spots that you see your ads are performing well, take a deep dive into that, get to understand what is working on those ads, and then making adjustments based off of that geo, and you're going to see much better performance. And that includes localization.
Wow, wonderful. So there is an add-on question to it. How localization plays a role in your creatives?
Perfect. So we have found that through testing that it really depends on the geo, but most of the time, 95% of the time, you don't have to localize the creative. Depending on what network or how you're running that ad, such as like Facebook. Most of the time, the ads we run on Facebook, the ad doesn't really have copy in it, okay? So you're not worrying about having to localize that copy. But you want to think about localizing the Facebook ad copy above, and you know, you do want to look at making sure you're localizing that. But when it comes to the ad, it depends on the visuals that you're going for, but 95% of the time, it's not really necessary. The imagery is what's going to catch the viewer's attention. And depending on how you've laid that out and you've ensured that you have drawn the user's eye throughout the ad to key areas to catch their attention and to ensure, so an example, if you have an ad, you know Facebook, we'll use Facebook, everybody knows Facebook in general, you know where the click through, the button to install, where it sits. So when you're designing your ad, you want to make sure you're designing elements within the ad that draws a user's eye from point A, which is usually falling on the left-hand side, upper right-hand corner, and that you draw the user down to the bottom right-hand corner where the button is. So you want to make sure when you're designing that you're getting that eye flow. But other than that, no. And generally, localization doesn't play a huge key. It all depends on the concept.
Wonderful. So there is one more question. What is the quickest way to test creatives?
Quickest way.
What's the quick way? Yeah.
A quick way. So, the creative team, whomever's asking the question, if it's coming from a UA side, if it's coming from a creative person, it's partnering with your UA manager, whomever is, running your campaigns and working with them. We find that you don't need to set a large budget to really start testing ads to get some sort of results from it. But I find, one of the best ways to do is to set up a basic Facebook campaign where you run your original asset with the variations within that asset within one campaign, because you're going to immediately get a lot of learnings from that. Because if you're throwing in different concepts within that one campaign, yes, one concept might be pulled out, but it's because those other concepts, like I talked about earlier on in the presentation, it might just be a simple changing of the orientation of that one original concept, and all of a sudden it becomes better. So if you run one idea with variations of that, then right away you can get a lot of learnings to understand, does the concept overall work? And if the concept overall worked, what iterations of the concept worked? Because then you can find and start dialing down what key areas. So this video did good, this video did good, and this video did good. What is different in these three videos around that original concept are different than the other ones that failed? Is it pacing? Is it layered of where the gameplay comes in? Is it the end card? Is it the intro? You're going to be able to get all of that type of information immediately, to where then you can take that, iterate on those successful ads to try to put those changes in, but also create all new ads based off of this out of the box learning.
Wonderful. Nice, William. Thank you so much. I think this was a great insight for creating the creatives for the game, because as a main point you could say to promote, to do the marketing. So amazing.
My pleasure.
Next, yeah, thank you. And the next talk, I think we have KPI
Hi everyone.
for free to play games. So I think you all can join. There is Abhishek from Ludo King team. And ready to move on to the next session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thanks a lot.